Hey everybody, today I'm really excited because in today's video I'm making bourbon and I'm going to use a very simple recipe for you beginners out there. This is a sugar mash recipe. This is not an all grain recipe, so for all you purists out there that are going to tell me we're not really making bourbon, just leave your complaints down in the show notes because we are not commercial distillers. We are moonshiners. By definition, moonshiners do not follow the rules anyway. So I wanted to make something that is distinctly bourbon. You taste it, you know it's bourbon, but we're going to use sugar instead of converting all the starches. So that's how we're going to cheat, but it's a really simple recipe for the beginners out there. And I'm going to use this kit. I offer this kit on Still in the Clear. It's everything you need to make this bourbon in one kit. So what it is, the recipe is 6 pounds of cracked corn and 3 pounds of oats. And the oats that I'm using are steamed and crimped. And so when you get the kit, you've got the 3 pounds of oats, a little thank you card, and an instruction sheet for how to mash. You're going to get 2 American white oak medium charred oak staves. You're going to get your yeast and you're going to get your corn, and this is what we're going to use. So we're going to mash this in. I'm going to take you from this to this today in this video. So let's get to it. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to heat this water up to 160 degrees. This is roughly 5 gallons of water. In total, we're going to end up using 10 gallons of water, but some of it we want cold. Now my water is up to temperature, so it's time to put in the corn. And what I'm going to do with this corn is I'm going to cook this for about 45 minutes at 60 degrees. And you're not wanting to gelatinize the corn here. If we were doing an all grain mash, we would want it gelatinized, but since we're not worrying about the starch conversion because we're going to be adding sugar, then we don't want it to gelatinize because that's just going to make things harder on us than it needs to be. But we do want to release the corn flavor. So 45 minutes at 160 degrees, and I'll get that done and be right back. Oh, don't forget, you got to stir the whole time. So don't forget that, otherwise you're going to scorch your corn. I'll be right back. And now that I've cooked the corn for 45 minutes at 160 degrees, it's time to dump in the oats. Now the oats don't really have to be cooked because the oats have already been steamed. All you got to do is dump them in and rehydrate them. So all we got to do now is stir this up, let the oats get good and hydrated, and we're going to transfer all this liquid into the fermenter that we're going to use. I don't know if you noticed, but I had a fermenter here. It was full of a brandy that I was working on, so I moved it out of the way. Now I'm going to bring in the empty fermenter so that we can transfer this into that fermenter, dump in the cold water to get to 10 gallons, and then see where the temperature is. If the temperature has dropped down to 90, then we can pitch our yeast. If not, then we've just got to let it sit until the temperature falls down to 90. I usually let mine go natural. I just let it fall naturally, but if you have a way to cool it down, maybe you have a wort chiller or something like that, there's nothing wrong with using it here. All right, now I can start transferring all this over, and then once I've got this transferred, this is also when I will add in the sugar. I'll add the sugar before I add the cold water, and the reason for this is the hot water just helps the sugar dissolve more easily. You can do it either way. If you forget to put the sugar in and then you add the cold water, it's not that big a deal. I just find this a little bit easier. There's 6 pounds. That makes 12 pounds. That'll make 15 pounds. We're going to stir this sugar in real good, let it get dissolved. And now it's time to add our other 5 gallons of cold water. And now I'm going to want to take a sample of this so that I can take a specific gravity reading. Now the temperature is too hot for it now, but to take the specific gravity reading with the hydrometer, you've got to be down around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And so I'm going to take a sample so that I can cool it down separately, because I'm going to add the yeast at 90 degrees. Once you add the yeast, you can't take a specific gravity reading that is your starting gravity, and we want to have a starting gravity for this. You always want to have a starting gravity, because if you run into problems during the ferment, you'll need that data point to solve to be able to troubleshoot whatever problem there might be. So we're going to take a sample right now. And that right there is going to be plenty for us to be able to test the gravity. Now I'm going to stick my thermometer in there just to see how far we are from being able to pitch yeast. So it looks like it's going to round out at about 110 degrees. So I'll come back later, let this temperature fall. It's summertime here, so I don't have to worry too much about it falling too low, because the ambient temperature around here right now is probably like 92, 95 degrees, which is probably why you can tell I'm sweating. I could probably come back tomorrow and pitch this yeast if I wanted to. Looks like we're at right about 165-ish, which is right about what you would expect for this recipe. Now it's time to pitch that yeast. Keep on rolling. Now, if you get the Beginner Bourbon kit, you will see on this yeast that we seal this Ziploc baggie so that during shipping it doesn't open and end up everywhere. So you got to cut that off to get it open. Oops, I didn't get it. And this is a 10-gallon batch, so you only need about 2 tablespoons. A lot of people like to use more than 2 tablespoons on a 10-gallon batch, and that's okay if you do. It's not going to hurt anything. This is daddy yeast that I'm using, and it's Red Star. So now that's it. All we got to do is stir it up real good, kind of oxygenate it, and let it sit. and then it'll be ready to roll. So this is the bourbon that we've already oaked and aged, obviously, and this one is not. So I'm going to take the American White Oak that's medium charred, comes in the kit, and I'm just going to drop it in. Now, some people will say that you need to soak your wood with water before you put it in. I don't find that that's necessary, so I don't do it. Now, this beginner bourbon recipe is about as easy as you can get to make a bourbon. I will say nothing quite compares to aging a bourbon in a real oak barrel. But this isn't bad. And if you've just started out in the hobby, you're at least a year away. If you do an all grain mash right now and put it in a barrel, you're a year away from getting to taste it. So this is just a great way to jump in there and start playing with some other bourbon recipes while you perfect your all grain barrel aged bourbon recipe. So jump in there and have a good time with it. Now, I've got other videos about oaking. I've got other videos about the specific gravity. If you weren't fully following along when I was talking about specific gravity, you might want to go check those out. I'll put a couple of videos up here that you can choose from. But that's it. So enjoy it. You don't have to be a pro at doing all grain recipes to start playing with bourbons.